welcome Kenneth Babyface Edmonds, one of the most influential producers, songwriters in modern music history. He's a 13-time Grammy winner who's helped define the sound of R&B and pop. He co-founded LaFace Records and has collaborated with everyone from Whitney Houston to Beyonce to Justin Bieber. That's a lot of range. The New York Times recently named him one of the 30 greatest living songwriters, and there's a major new documentary about to be released. He joins us today to talk about creativity, the messy parts of the business, and what it takes to build lasting legacy. Welcome, Babyface.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you.
So before the 12 Grammys, when you were just Kenny, a quiet, unassuming, shy kid from Indianapolis who lost his father at a young age, you know, I thought about the fact that you were making this documentary, right?
Uh-huh.
It must have made you look back at your life.
Yes.
So when you think back to that kid who you were, what did you now know about how it shaped you to get to today?
How it shaped me?
Yeah.
When I look back, I still kind of pinch myself to think how I got here, still, because it wasn't like there wasn't a plan per se. It was kind of like going. I felt like I was lucky the whole way through. Things which just kind of happened sometimes, and there were a lot of times when things weren't going right. But for the most part, I just didn't give up, and I just felt like there was something at the end of the road. But no pun intended. But I think I just kept going, and so when I look at that kid, I don't know that I would felt like it was supposed to happen. You know, like where I am today, like, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be. It all feels like it's still a pinch me moment of like, how did I end up here? You know, and it's through hard work, but still, it's one of those things where I've ran into and worked with so many artists over the years that knew exactly who they were and what they wanted to be. And when they got there, they were like, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. It's supposed to be me. And that was never me. I was always just kind of like thankful to be where I got.
A big part of your brand is being unassuming.
I think so. It's whether it's my brand or not, it's kind of like who I've always been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, when we met, I had no idea who you were, and we just rolled with it.
Yeah. But I was more interested in where you were from and where you grew up, and that was cool.
Well, that's how we bonded. So when you think about the big leagues, you partnered with L.A. Reid, you launched, a record label. What do you think about having gone into that side of the business?
The record business was not something that I always wanted to do. It kind of fell on our laps because we were producing so many different artists, and because we were working with these artists, we were kind of having success with it. And then LA was like, well, shouldn't we do a label? Shouldn't we kind of make something from this as well? And then I said, if you want to, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And that's kind of like more or less how it happened. But it was, to be honest, it was LA's dream more than it was mine to do a record company.
He was very focused on the business and actually then entered sort of more of a corporate path after that.
Yeah, I think it was his dream to do a label. It was my dream to kind of just work with artists and write music for it. That's what I was there for, I think.
I read that you said this internet and social media has taken the soul out of a lot of things. So as you think about that, what does that mean? And what has been the change that you've seen in the business?
In terms of what? Say again?
I read that you said the internet and social media has taken the soul out of a lot of things. What does that mean?
I don't know if I said that, but... Somebody said I said that. I don't know if it's taken the soul out of it, but it's shined the light on a lot of things that are negative, that come. You can hear people hating on you almost more than you used to before, and I don't know if people have always been that hateful. And it's hurtful to a number of artists when you live by that and you start reading things about your music and you start reading things about what they think about you, and I don't know how that would feel for a lot of artists that didn't go through that at the time, in earlier days. So and so I think it does make it harder. I think it's probably best to not read everything and not listen to everybody's opinions on it, because it certainly can make you not work as hard, or frustrate you, and you think that you're going down the wrong road.
You may not have intended it, but you created a lot of music that's been timeless. So when you think about young artists today and sort of the environment that they find themselves in, do you think that the demands are different because the world is moving faster and is just more, sort of the way you're describing it, visible and transparent?
The world is moving faster, and to write a song that lasts forever today, it's very, I don't know that any of us thought at any point that we thought, okay, this record's going to be forever. This is going to be around for a long time. You never, at least I never knew that. And there are some artists that write records today that have some songs today that are going to be around for a while, and then some things are just going to come in and go, as they did before. But even more so today, it's harder to get that kind of song that's just going to hit everybody the same way and last forever. Radio is not the same anymore. There's no one out there kind of like telling you what records to listen to, or how to listen. And so it's hard to pinpoint on any one particular hit at this particular point. You can get music everywhere, which is a good thing, and in some ways it's a bad thing.
Do you still have records?
So I still have records?
Yeah, LPs.
LPs? Yeah, I still got some.
Is that how you listen to music?
No, I'd lie if I said I did that.
I heard they were making a comeback, so I wasn't sure.
Well, yeah, a little bit.
So a lot of legends dominate an era and they coast on the nostalgia. That's not really what's happening with you. You've actually had hits in the last few years that have, broken records. What do you think it is about you that has this incredible longevity in terms of your ability to produce songs?
I think I've worked with a number of artists over the years, as I said, and I've been around some really great artists, and I would always ask them, like I asked Paul McCartney, I asked Stevie Wonder the same question. What was going on when you were writing these hits? I felt like there was magic dust in the air when they were writing these incredible songs. And Paul McCartney, I said, it's like the Walrus. How did you come up with the Walrus song? What was in your brain at the time? And he said, oh, it was drugs. I said, okay.
Did you ask him what kind?
I just imagine what kind. But and Stevie, he said I was just writing what I felt, and so there was something about the time period, and there was just something in the air in the 60s and the 70s that allowed creativity to just it was free. And inspiring, and what was going on in the world, and how people cared about each other and cared about other people, and that the world was good, and the world that we were reaching for love. Love was more apparent then, and I think it had something to do with the music and the music that we made. And so if you look at society today and try to imagine that in here, it's a lot harder to get to that and to feel that energy and to feel that specialness that comes with it. So I think that the whole idea of, when you go back to lasting music and the way that people wrote music, it has a lot to do with society and what's going on in society and what's going on around you, and we just don't have that anymore. That great feeling that. And I think that the way that things are going, I always kind of put it on there. There'll be some young artists that are going to look around and say, and make the question like Marvin Gaye asked, what's going on? There will be a young artist that will actually start to write that today, and it will fit in how today feels. And so for me, I never judge in terms of what music is, and I don't say if it doesn't feel like Stevie, if it doesn't feel like Paul, then it's no good anymore, and you get caught in this thing where you always kind of like think that people judge music based off of the time period. I try not to be stuck in a time period. I try to always look at everything and everybody as what it is for the time. If I hear something that I hate or I didn't like, but everybody else liked it, then I think, well, I must be wrong. So I listen to it more to try to figure out what is it that people love about it. And that allows me to, kind of get into it and look at it in a different way. So it allows me to work with younger artists that are doing something different than I would do. So I always go in there to learn, opposed to not just to teach, but also to learn from them. And
What do you think makes you curious and open in that way?
I think I've always been curious and open. I've always liked all kinds of music, so it doesn't really matter. I'm just not a hater.
Well, in fact, I think you started off writing love songs.
Yeah, no question. I was always falling in love and getting my heart broke, so that was the way to do it.
So now when you write songs, I mean, you're describing an environment that doesn't feel as conducive, but you're still writing #1 songs. So what is inspiring you?
I think still, no matter what, it's always comes from a place of love. That feeling that I felt in, as 13, 14-year-old. When I started first writing songs, I wrote my first song when I was in 6th grade because I saw this girl that I had a crush on. She, got on the bus and I fell in love at first sight and ended up writing, going home, starting a diary on it, and I wrote down everything she wore, everything she did, and I ended up writing this song called "Here I Go Falling in Love," and it was just I didn't even plan on playing it for her. I just wrote it for me in that sense, and it started there in 6th grade, and that was my.
Sorry, did you end up playing it for her?
Oh no. I was too shy for that. And then I wrote then I didn't write for a little while. It was probably in 8th grade when I wrote my second song, which is about the same girl. And that time it was a heartbreak thing. It was like, the song was called The Bitter Taste of Life. Yeah. I was 8th grade.
Well, what had turned, from 6th grade to 8th grade? Like, what happened?
Well, 6th grade and 7th grade, I never really did talk to her. But I kind of looked at her from afar. And then I finally met her, and we hung out for about a week, and it was really cool. It was the best thing in life. And then I don't want to go through the whole story, but it was my first kiss and my first diss, all in the same moment. Because we kissed each other, and as soon as she kissed me, she said, "I don't think we're going to be able to see each other anymore."
Well, it turns out that was fuel.
It was fuel. It was, she broke my heart big time, but I ended up, chasing her down years later. In 2012, I found her, and because I wanted to.
I already love this story.
Because I wanted to find out, did she know, did she remember, did she know what I felt? And she had no clue. But
Had she been following your career?
No, she followed it, but she didn't really put it all together. And, I was a blip in her life. And she was more important to me, which I thought was so interesting. And the thing that my takeaway from it was that, she meant so much to me, and she was so embarrassed. I feel so sorry that I hurt your feelings in that way, because, I had just she was kind of like everything at the moment for me. And she said something to me. She said, "I feel really bad for her." And then she ended up texting me or sending me a DM saying, "I'm really sorry about how I made you feel." And she said something very powerful to me. She said, if I had known that someone had loved me, truly loved me, then maybe my life would have turned out different.
Wow.
And I told her, don't feel bad, because I said, you're the girl who launched 1,000 love songs. Because from that, I started writing songs, and it was all on the basis of I fell in love with her in 6th grade. And then I didn't fall out of love in 8th grade. I just had my heart broke.
But you know, I often think that growth comes from the messy parts. And for you, that's definitely what happened.
Yes, it was. I mean, I took that, and of course, I would over exaggerate it, and it was, you know, it wasn't that bad, but it felt that bad. And I guess I said all that to say that many times when I've written and songs over the years, I would go back to that moment of that puppy love, that strong love that you feel in the beginning. It was so strong and so powerful that that's the emotion that you write from. So it's over exaggerated, but that's what kind of like comes in songs, and it was just it was a place to go for creativity all the time when I need to be inspired.
You've been producing and writing songs for a long time. What inspires you to keep going?
I think it's the love for the music. It's the love for a great song. Other people that are inspired by me, that inspires me. You know, I've been in the studio with Bruno Mars a number of times, and watching Bruno write and watching how he approaches it. That's inspiring to me.
Is it similar or different to your way?
It's similar in one way, but he's far more of a perfectionist than I am, and then to watch SZA, to watch her create, which she writes like that. It's incredible where she'll walk in the room and she won't even be writing anything. She's like a rapper, and she'll just kind of just start going, and these melodies and the tone of her voice and the way she approaches it, it's pretty amazing to watch with a lot of young writers that I've worked with over the years. So I think it's the love for the craft and the love for the music. I've always thought of myself as a songwriter first, producer second, and an artist last.
So, you know, when you think about the young generation coming in, many of whom you still work with, there's sort of a trend now where people who have a lot of rights to their music have begun to sell them.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for young people in terms of protecting that asset? And what is making so many people, you know, now cash in on that?
Well, a lot of people cash in on it because they want to get paid. You know, they need money at this point and can't keep on waiting for that check to come. And so you take the chance of kind of selling and getting one bulk amount of money at this point. And so some people sell part of the publishing and so they can keep on making as well. And I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with it. The one thing is it's whether you sell it or not, you are the creator of it, and it's always your song. So no one's going to take that part away from it, you know. And I think that today, in growing up, when we were starting, you know, we signed to a record company. They take 50% of your publishing, whether they pay for it or not. In those days, people would just, you know, you didn't get paid for anything. They just, if you're going to sign here, then I want your publishing. What are you going to say? Well, I ain't going to sign. Well, that didn't work out, you know, all the time. So, so you would just kind of get into these deals that weren't great deals, and it's kind of like what you ultimately had to go through. And that's why when you see a story like Diane Warren, who held on to her writing and her publishing the whole way through, like, that's crazy. And that's amazing that she did that, and that she just kind of said, nope, I'm not gonna give it up. I'm not gonna do any particular deal. And that's just very rare to see that happen. And if most artists were able to do that, then they wouldn't be selling it at this point. And Diane Warren still hasn't sold it. They probably won't.
When is your documentary coming out?
Probably sometime next year.
And what should we expect with that?
A documentary. It's a lot about the music and kind of how things happen. And I can't really say because I haven't really seen it yet. So, and I'm trying not to get involved in say, okay, you shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that. So I'm trying to just kind of say what I say and then see what happens with it.
What made you say yes to this group? I
just kept on, people kept asking me to tell the story, and They wore me down. I think I said, okay.
Well, that's a good lesson, I think, for all of us. Wear you down. You're now in Vegas. You're doing a residency.
Yes.
What is that like? What made you decide to do that?
It's nice to have a home, so to say, a place to go to perform. We're at the Palms, and it's not like constant. It's like, you do the main holidays, Valentine's Day and, Martin Luther King holiday, and Labor Day, Memorial Day, all those, holiday weekends is usually when we kind of go there. And it's nice to go on the stage, and because I not only do my songs, but I go through a medley of songs that I did for a number of artists, and that's always a fun part to go through because it's kind of like time travel, and to see everybody kind of singing along and singing all these words that you wrote, that's one of the best feelings that you can have as a writer, is to see people actually singing words that you wrote and singing it loud, strong and loud, and that's a powerful feeling. I think for any writer and any artist, that's one of the best feelings that you can have.
Is there someone you'd like to write a song for that you haven't so far? Because we can manifest it right here in this group.
I've been lucky enough to really work with so many people that I wanted to work with. There are people that, passed away that I wish I would have worked with, Wish I would have had a chance to work with Marvin Gaye. I did something with Luther, but I didn't really get a chance to really do something with Luther that I would want to. So, you always want to do better, but there's no one particularly that I can say that that I have to get in with at this particular point. If it happens, it's great, but it's no longer a thing like that. If I don't, then it's all right.
So is this your first can?
Yes.
So is everybody asking you about AI?
No one's asked yet. But
All right, here we go, because I don't think there's a panel or conversation where AI doesn't come up. Do you think about sort of the impact of AI on your business?
It's AI can do a lot of great things. It can be a great tool, but it's also very scary in terms of what it possibly can do. Not just with music, but in everything that we do. We can be replaced. And
Do you think that's true?
I find it interesting that, sometimes you'll find this artist and somebody will send me this artist that they're crazy about, and it's not a real artist.
What does that mean?
It's not a real person. It's AI. It's this great voice, and I'm like, ooh, wow, he's good. Let me check him out. I'd like to work with him. Well, guess what? He's not real.
Do you know immediately it's AI?
No, you don't, and that's the thing. I mean, you can look at the video of the person and say, okay, that person doesn't seem quite real, little too good to be true. Star quality and all those things. It's like, and these are early days, so in terms of what possibly can happen, you can create this perfect artist. And the only thing is, you're not going to be able to go see them in concert yet, till one day, they'll probably make AI people where they'll be sitting in the room with us, as
But
robots.
don't you think part of the chemistry in real life is sort of, the atoms or whatever the physiologies of being in a space together? I mean, because live performance, that's definitely still a thing.
Yes, I mean, that's still a thing, but when that gets threatened with the idea of an actual real person that's not a real person is there on that stage with you one day, that could possibly happen, and it's happening in music, and so the very thing that our creativity and everything is, it's studied, and then it's perfected, and this great song that you think that you wrote, then you have AI doing it in 20 seconds that you spent, weeks of writing on the song, and then they come back and, this is the formula, let's do this. Now, I think that I've always argued that it's never going to be able to capture the soul. It's never going to be able to capture the life experience. You can write all those things in, but writing all those things in is different than feeling those things. It's never going to feel the way I felt in my first kiss and diss in 8th grade. You know, it's not going to feel that pain. You can only write about it, but you can't feel it. So sometimes I think that the only thing that makes us safe is that those human emotions and those human feelings that you get, that's very hard to put into any computer. It's like producing someone in a session. You know, it's too robotic. I don't feel the emotion. The thing that when we signed Toni Braxton, the thing that I loved about Toni Braxton was that I heard the pain in her voice. And that was what, like, oof, I can write for that. So it's not really about how great you can do a riff or how strong your voice is. It's about the emotion that's in your voice, and can you give me that? And many times that only comes from real life experience. So that's the only thing that I think we might save us for a while. But who knows? Maybe one day it'll figure out the formula of pain.
I'm not sure if this is doom and gloom. Okay. Well, I mean, you've definitely had a long legacy, so I'm going to count on more legacy. You know, I think music has the ability to make people feel, and that's what you're describing with Toni Braxton. There's a lot of marketers and business people in this room, and you know, I think a good marketer is also trying to get somebody to feel. What advice do you have for us as we think about sort of the world that we navigate? We're not all songwriters, but what advice do you have in terms of connecting with consumers? Because in the end, you're connecting with somebody who listens to your song, and you get them to not just buy something, but feel something.
Well, I think that's it. It's connecting. It's the idea of have you touched an emotion, something that takes you back to a particular time, something that reminds you of your childhood or the good times, or something that just gets emotion. And when people feel a connection to anything, there's emotion that's behind it. And so that's no different than writing a song, of trying to figure out, you know, how do I reach this person? And you only reach them through things that they can relate to, and that emotion. And I think that's always been the case with anything that we've ever, whether it's, you know, a particular brand or a particular song, of reaching out to people, trying to get people interested in it. And sometimes you hit that one thing that nobody else thought of, and it works for a while, and then their emotions change. You got to do something else.
Knowing everything you know about the changes in the music business, if you were standing in front of, you know, Kenneth, the kid from Indianapolis, what would you tell him?
For today?
Yeah, if you could mentor yourself as if it was time travel.
I think I would tell myself to not be afraid to stand up for yourself. I think that there were a lot of things that I accepted, and just accepted it like, okay, well, this is the business, and so you got to do it, and this is what you got to go through, and not knowing that I probably could have fought it, and maybe not won at that moment, but won later. So some of those things, in terms of just accepting, you know, bad deals, publishing those, whether it's deals that you're doing, thinking that you have to do it. You don't. The one thing that I appreciate about, say, the world of hip hop and the young entrepreneurs that came from that, is they kind of came at it loud. Nah, I'm not going to accept that. You know, I'm getting my money, and they ended up, you know, doing much better than us younger R&B people that were in music, thinking that we just had to accept what they gave us. And so I would say that I would tell myself to be, you know, to not just accept it, you know, fight for what you think is right and what you think is fair, and stay on that, stand on that.
Well, thank you so much for coming. My final question is, what made sunglasses your go-to, kind of like Anna Wintour? I gotta ask.
The Jackson 5.
That's a much better answer.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us.